Hi guys, my name is Emily, and today I will be reviewing Finders Keepers, which is Stephen King's latest novel. It is the sequel to Mr.Mercedes. This novel tells the story of Morris Bellamy, who is an angry reader. He read the works of John Rothstein, who is this fictional, prolific American writer who has written this character Jimmy Gold, and it's a series of 3 books, and Morris Bellamy was absolutely in love with these books. They inspired him, they got him writing in the margins, and he was so in love with this Jimmy Gold character and the story, but he was very disappointed with the ending of the trilogy. He one day decides that he will get revenge. So he goes to Rothstein's house and he breaks in and he steals some money and unpublished manuscripts. But before he really has a chance to look at these unpublished manuscripts, Morris Bellamy actually ends up going to jail for a completely different crime. And so these literary treasures are kind of lost to the world for many, many years until a young boy named Pete Saubers finds this hidden treasure in the woods behind his house, and he becomes obsessed and he reads the rest of this story in the unpublished manuscripts. And so Morris Bellamy and Pete Saubers actually have very similar stories, but they do very different things with these manuscripts. Pete Saubers tries to sell some of these unpublished works kind of under the table because his father has been injured in the Mr.Mercedes killing in that shopping mall. If you remember, Mr. Mercedes did that lovely, lovely stunt where he drove his Mercedes through a job fair lineup, and Pete Saubers' dad was one of those people in the lineup that was hurt. So because the family is kind of struggling, he wants to sell these unpublished manuscripts to kind of help his family out. The characters from Mr. Mercedes, Bill Hodges, Holly, and Jerome, all come into play in this novel, although much later in the novel. They're not as central this time around, which I kind of liked. And I don't want to say more, I don't want to say how it ends, obviously, because you want to find that out for yourself. I haven't said anything that isn't on the front jacket of the book. So, no spoilers unless you consider the jacket of the book spoilery, but that's kind of the setup information you need to know about the world and the story. So things obviously progress from there, and it gets interesting, and I think what I really liked about this story was the literary aspect and the idea of reading the unpublished works of a writer that you really admire, because there are definitely some writers that I really admire that haven't produced anything in a really long time, or never produced anything else. Like, they wrote one book and that's it. Like, they didn't do anything after that. Like, Patrick Kavanagh wrote an amazing book called Gaff Topsails, and it's the only thing he's written. It's the only, like, piece of fiction that he's written. He wrote one book, and that was it. But I would imagine that he probably writes privately, because he's a writer, evidently, right? So, like, it would be so cool to see what else he's writing, but not wanting to publish. And so I can totally see where Morris Bellamy and Pete Saubers are coming from when they discover that John Rothstein has written other stuff but not published it, and they just become so obsessed and in love with his writing and these ideas that aren't public. And so I really, really enjoyed the whole unpublished manuscript idea about this story. I actually liked that Bill Hodges wasn't as involved. I liked that we spent a lot of time with Pete Saubers. So overall, I would say that I actually enjoyed Finders Keepers a lot more than I enjoyed Mr. Mercedes. There was actually one point in here where it got me thinking, and I posted this on my Tumblr just because it was an interesting quotation and I was thinking a lot about it as I read it, and I will share it with you now. The context, I guess, is Morris Bellamy is talking to his very literary, professory mother, who did not like the Rothstein books. She says that a good novelist does not lead his characters, he follows them. A good novelist does not create events, he watches them happen and then he writes down what he sees. A good novelist realizes he is a secretary, not God. And I thought that idea about what a novelist is interesting. Especially because, for my own selfish reasons, I am doing a thesis where I am basically critiquing authors for the narrative arcs of their female characters. And if it's true that a good novelist follows his characters where they lead, what does that mean? Am I reading good novelists because they are following the character's natural arc? They are following the character where they lead them? Would it be bad for an author to direct a character in an unnatural way to challenge the status quo of like this heteronormative ending we always see? So it got me really thinking about the role of the author. That I really appreciated about this book. I always like it when authors write about authors. I feel like you're getting a tiny peek into their brain and what it's like to be an author and how they see themselves. I thought that was really cool, and I will probably be pondering that quotation for a long time. And so I believe I gave Mr. Mercedes 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I really enjoyed all the aspects of the crime fiction. I enjoyed the obsession with the hidden treasure literary texts, and I enjoyed that one standout quotation that really made me stop and think. And so I would highly recommend that you do check out Finders Keepers by Stephen King. I don't think you really need to have read Mr. Mercedes. At least this one feels very standalone. It's a sequel in a very loose way, like the characters kind of overlap, but I feel like you don't really need to have read Mr. Mercedes to pick up Finders Keepers. Let me know your thoughts on Finders Keepers in the comments below if you've read it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.